The deep, unforgiving jungles of the Congo, a place of myth and shadow, for decades, it was the sanctuary for one of Africa's most brutal and elusive rebel groups, the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF. They were a ghost army, emerging from the wilderness to spread terror, then vanishing back into the trees. Local forces were powerless. The UN was stretched thin. Then, the hunters arrived. Battle-hardened soldiers of the Uganda People's Defense Force, the UPDF. Moving with a discipline forged in the crucible of civil war and decades of counterinsurgency. This wasn't a peacekeeping mission, codenamed Operation Shujaa. It was a full-scale invasion, a relentless hunt to destroy the ADF in their own lair. This is the story of the modern UPDF, a military born from the ashes of brutal dictatorships, tempered in the fires of the continent's most savage conflicts, and reborn as the undisputed spear of regional security in the Great Lakes region. But how did an army, once a tool of state terror, transform into one of Africa's most effective and respected fighting forces? The answer lies in a story of revolution, ruthless pragmatism, and the will to hunt down its enemies, no matter where they hide. To understand the discipline of the modern UPDF, you must first understand the chaos from which it was born. For nearly 2 decades, Uganda was a nation terrorized by its own armies. The brutal regime of Idi Amin and the subsequent bloody civil war under Milton Obote turned the country into a killing field. The state's soldiers were not protectors, they were predators. It was in this cauldron of violence that a new force was forged. In the early 1980s, a small group of rebels led by a young intellectual named Yoweri Museveni launched a guerrilla war from the Luaro Triangle. They called themselves the National Resistance Army, or NRA. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and hunted by the state. But they had a revolutionary idea. They were not just a rebel army, they were a people's army. They embedded themselves in the civilian population, creating a powerful intelligence network and a deep well of popular support. It was here, in the brutal Bush War, that the core principles of the future UPDF were established: discipline, political consciousness, and a close relationship with the people. When the NRA finally marched into Kampala and seized power in 1986, they were not just another group of soldiers, they were a battle-hardened revolutionary force with a mandate to rebuild a shattered nation. But the victory of NRA did not bring immediate peace. From the north, a new, far more sinister threat emerged. The Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA, led by the messianic and psychopathic Joseph Kony. For 20 years, the LRA waged a campaign of unimaginable brutality, abducting tens of thousands of children to serve as soldiers and sex slaves, and massacring entire villages. Kony was a ghost. His forces used the vast, porous borders of Uganda, South Sudan, and the Congo to their advantage, striking and then melting back into the wilderness. The hunt for Joseph Kony became the defining mission for the newly renamed Uganda People's Defense Force. It was a long, frustrating, and bloody war against an unconventional enemy. This 2-decade-long conflict turned the UPDF into masters of counterinsurgency. They learned how to track, how to survive in the bush for months at a time, and how to win the trust of terrified local populations to gather intelligence. While the LRA was never completely destroyed, by the late 2000s, the UPDF had successfully driven them out of Uganda, breaking their back as a fighting force and pushing their remnants deep into Central Africa. The hunt for Kony had forged the UPDF into a relentless and highly effective expeditionary army. To be a regional power requires a robust and pragmatic arsenal. The UPDF equipment is a reflection of its history and its mission, a blend of rugged, battle-tested Soviet-era hardware and modern specialized counterinsurgency tools. The armored fist of the UPDF is its tank corps, centered around the powerful Russian-made T-90 and modernized T-72 main battle tanks. These are supported by a vast and effective fleet of infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers, including the iconic South African-made Mamba and Buffle mine-resistant vehicles, essential for surviving the IED-laden battlefields of Somalia. In the skies, the UPDF Air Force provides the critical Long Spear. Its most feared assets are the Russian-made Mi-24, Hind, and Mi-28 Havoc attack helicopters. These flying tanks are the ultimate tools for a jungle war, capable of delivering devastating rocket and cannon fire on elusive rebel positions. They are supported by a growing fleet of fighter jets, including the supersonic Russian Su-30, giving Uganda air superiority over its immediate neighbors. But the true backbone of UPDF doctrine is overwhelming firepower. Its artillery units, equipped with weapons like the fearsome BM-21, Grad multiple rocket launcher, are capable of saturating entire areas, breaking enemy morale before the infantry even begins its assault. This is a force built not for parades, but for the hard, grinding reality of African warfare. In 2007, the UPDF embarked on its most ambitious and dangerous mission yet. They became the first and for 2 years the only nation to contribute troops to the African Union mission in Somalia or AMISOM. Their task? To stabilize Mogadishu, one of the most dangerous cities on earth, and to fight the ruthless Al-Qaeda-affiliated terror group, Al-Shabaab. It was a meat grinder. The UPDF faced brutal urban warfare, suicide bombings, and relentless guerrilla attacks. Casualties were high. Many observers predicted they would fail, that they would be driven out just as the Americans had been in 1993. But they were wrong. The UPDF did not just survive in Mogadishu, they prevailed. Drawing on their decades of counterinsurgency experience against the LRA, they methodically cleared the city neighborhood by neighborhood. They were not an occupying force, they were skilled urban warriors. They drove Al-Shabaab from the capital and established a security bubble that allowed a fledgling Somali government to begin to function. For over a decade, Uganda has been the backbone of the fight in Somalia, earning the respect of the world and cementing the UPDF reputation as Africa's most effective peace-enforcing army. The crucible of Mogadishu has battle-hardened a new generation of UPDF soldiers and commanders. From its revolutionary origins in the Ugandan bush to the brutal jungles of the Congo and the shattered streets of Mogadishu, the UPDF has been forged in a crucible of constant conflict. It has faced down brutal dictators, hunted psychopathic warlords, and battled ruthless terrorists. Today, the force faces new challenges: the ongoing mission in the Congo, the simmering threat of regional instability, and the need to modernize its forces, but its core identity remains. This is not a ceremonial army. It is a fighting army, a force of hunters. Driven by a revolutionary doctrine of discipline and popular support, and battle-hardened in the continent's most difficult wars, the Uganda People's Defense Force has become more than just a national army. It is the indispensable security guarantor of the Great Lakes region, a forged spear ready to answer the call when peace is threatened. And for the enemies of stability who hide in the shadows, the sound of its approaching helicopters remains their absolute worst nightmare.